2 years ago, Jennifer Walsh went into surgery as a normal woman who could bend the truth, and came out as someone who could only speak reality, no matter how brutal. The Ellen DeGeneres show was buzzing with its characteristic warmth at the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank, with Ellen stepping onto the stage in her signature white button-down and navy blazer, her infectious smile immediately connecting with the audience of 300 who rose to their feet in enthusiastic applause. The familiar studio atmosphere embraced everyone present, featuring its iconic blue sky backdrop with fluffy white clouds and swaying palm trees, while the famous white chairs with their sleek black wooden legs sat ready for another afternoon of extraordinary conversation. "Welcome back, everybody," Ellen called out. As the opening music faded, her voice carrying that perfect blend of curiosity and compassion that had made her show a destination for the most unusual human stories. Today I'm going to introduce you to someone whose story is going to make you question everything you think you know about honesty, about social interaction, and about what it really means to tell the truth. What happened to my guest 2 years ago didn't just change her life, it changed her entire relationship with reality itself. The studio buzzed with anticipation as camera operators adjusted their positions and the production team prepared for what they sensed would be one of the most psychologically complex segments in the show's history. It was Monday afternoon, and the energy in the room reflected the kind of intense curiosity that preceded Ellen's most thought-provoking conversations. In the green room, 38-year-old Jennifer Walsh sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, as she mentally prepared for what would be the most public discussion of her condition she had ever attempted. Jennifer looked like any other professional woman, well-dressed, articulate, composed. But hidden behind her calm exterior was a neurological condition so rare that only a handful of cases had ever been documented in medical literature. 2 years ago, Jennifer had been a successful marketing executive at a mid-sized advertising firm in Denver, Colorado. She had been married for 12 years to her college sweetheart, Mark, and they had 2 young children, Emma and Jake. Jennifer's life had been built around the small social lies that most people take for granted, telling clients their campaigns were brilliant when they were mediocre, assuring friends that their new haircuts looked amazing when they didn't, promising her children that shots at the doctor's office wouldn't hurt at all when she knew they would. The transformation that would change everything had begun with severe headaches that Jennifer initially dismissed as work stress. But when the headaches were accompanied by episodes of confusion and vision loss, her doctor had ordered an MRI that revealed a small but dangerous arteriovenous malformation in her brain, a tangle of blood vessels threatening to cause a stroke. The surgery to repair the malformation had been considered routine. Dr. Rebecca Santos, one of Denver's most respected brain surgeons, had successfully removed the problematic blood vessels without any apparent complications. Jennifer's recovery had proceeded normally for the first few weeks, with her experiencing expected fatigue and mild cognitive fog. But as Jennifer returned to her normal activities, both she and her family began noticing changes in her behavior. The first sign had come during a dinner party when Jennifer had responded to a neighbor's question about her kitchen renovation by saying, "Honestly, I think it looks terrible, and we wasted our money, but Mark insisted on that contractor, even though I told him the guy seemed incompetent." The room had fallen silent, with Mark staring at his wife in shock. Jennifer had immediately realized what she had said, but found herself unable to soften it with the kind of diplomatic follow-up comment that would normally smooth over such a harsh statement. Instead, she heard herself adding, "And Mark is giving me that look that means he's embarrassed, but he knows I'm right about the contractor." Over the following weeks, similar incidents had multiplied with alarming frequency. Jennifer found herself unable to give polite but insincere compliments, incapable of offering reassuring lies to her children, and completely unable to engage in the kind of diplomatic conversations that her career required. The realization that something fundamental had changed in Jennifer's brain came during a follow-up appointment with Dr. Santos, when Jennifer found herself unable to give the polite response, "I'm feeling much better," to the doctor's routine question about her recovery. Instead, she heard herself saying, "I feel physically fine, but something is wrong with my ability to lie or even soften the truth, and it's destroying my relationships and my career." Dr. Santos had initially been skeptical, assuming that Jennifer was experiencing temporary disinhibition that would resolve as her brain continued healing. But as Jennifer described specific incidents and demonstrated her complete inability to engage in even small social fabrications, Dr. Santos began to understand that they were dealing with something unprecedented. Additional brain imaging had revealed that the surgery, while successfully removing the dangerous blood vessel malformation, had inadvertently affected areas of Jennifer's prefrontal cortex that neuroscientists were only beginning to understand. These brain regions appeared to be responsible for the complex cognitive processes that allow humans to filter their thoughts before speaking and to engage in tactical dishonesty. Dr. Santos had consulted with colleagues around the world and discovered that Jennifer's condition, which she had tentatively labeled pathological honesty syndrome, had only been documented in 3 other cases in medical literature. All of the previous cases had involved brain trauma rather than surgery, and none of the patients had shown any signs of recovery even years after their initial injuries. The impact on Jennifer's life had been devastating in ways that most people would never consider. Within 6 months of her surgery, she had been terminated from her marketing position after a series of client meetings in which she had provided unfiltered assessments that, while accurate, had cost the firm several major accounts. But perhaps the most challenging aspect of Jennifer's condition was its impact on her relationships with her children. 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jake had been confused and hurt by their mother's inability to offer the comforting reassurances that children need. When Emma had asked if her pet hamster would go to heaven after it died, Jennifer had found herself unable to provide the gentle, religious comfort she would have offered before her surgery, instead saying, "I don't know if heaven exists, and I can't promise you something I'm not sure about." However, as Jennifer had learned to navigate her new reality, she had begun discovering unexpected positive aspects of her condition. Her complete inability to lie had made her a surprisingly effective counselor for friends and family members who were struggling with difficult decisions. People began seeking her out, specifically because they knew she would provide honest feedback without diplomatic evasions. Jennifer had started volunteering at a local crisis counseling center where her absolute honesty had proven to be an unexpected asset. Callers who were contemplating suicide or struggling with addiction responded powerfully to someone who couldn't offer false reassurances, but instead provided genuine human connection. The moment that had brought Jennifer to Ellen's attention had occurred 6 months ago when a local newspaper had written a feature story about her volunteer work at the crisis center. The article had described how Jennifer's brain injury had transformed her from a successful marketing executive into someone who literally couldn't lie, and how she had channeled this neurological challenge into a form of service that was helping people in ways that conventional therapy sometimes couldn't achieve. A production assistant appeared at Jennifer's side. "Ms. Walsh, you're ready to go out. How are you feeling about sharing your story?" Jennifer looked up and, true to her condition, answered with complete honesty. "I'm terrified that people will think I'm a freak, but I also hope that sharing this might help other people understand that sometimes our biggest challenges can become our most unexpected gifts." "Please welcome Jennifer Walsh," Ellen announced, and Jennifer walked onto the stage to curious, supportive applause. The audience immediately sensed that this guest was different somehow. There was something unusually direct about her presence, an absence of the subtle performance that most people engage in when appearing on television. "Hi, Jennifer," Ellen said warmly as they settled into the iconic white chairs. "Thank you so much for being here. Now, I have to start by asking, is it true that you literally cannot lie?" Jennifer looked directly at Ellen and answered without hesitation. "Yes, it's completely true. 2 years ago I had brain surgery to repair a blood vessel problem, and when I woke up, I had lost the ability to lie, to soften the truth, or even to engage in polite social fabrications. If you ask me a question, I can only give you an honest answer, even if that honesty is uncomfortable or inappropriate." Ellen's eyebrows raised in amazement. "That's incredible. Can you give me an example of how this affects your daily life?" "Well," Jennifer said, "when you asked how I was feeling about being here, I told your producer that I was terrified people would think I'm a freak. Most people would have said something like, 'I'm excited to be here,' but I literally cannot say things that aren't true, even if they're the socially expected response." The audience was completely silent, fascinated by this demonstration of radical honesty. "Jennifer," Ellen said gently, "this must have been devastating for your personal relationships." "It was," Jennifer replied with matter-of-fact sadness. "I lost my job because I couldn't tell clients their bad ideas were good. My marriage almost ended because I couldn't give my husband the kind of reassuring lies that marriages sometimes need. My children were hurt because I couldn't promise them things I wasn't sure about." Ellen was clearly moved by Jennifer's straightforward description of such painful experiences. "But you said, 'almost ended.' Your marriage survived." Jennifer's face softened slightly. "Yes, and in some ways it's stronger now. Mark had to learn to trust that when I tell him I love him, I really mean it, because I literally cannot say it if it's not true. There's something powerful about knowing that every positive thing your partner says to you is completely genuine." "That's beautiful," Ellen said. "How have you learned to cope with this condition?" "I've had to completely restructure my life," Jennifer explained. "I can't work in marketing anymore, but I've found that my inability to lie makes me effective at crisis counseling. People who are struggling with addiction or suicidal thoughts respond to someone who can't offer false hope, but can offer genuine understanding." Ellen leaned forward with interest. "So this condition that initially seemed like a disaster has become a way to help people?" "Exactly," Jennifer said. "I can't tell someone that everything will be okay if I don't know that's true. But I can tell them that their feelings are valid, that they're not alone, and that they matter. And they know I mean it because I literally cannot say things I don't believe." Ellen stood up and moved to sit closer to Jennifer. "What has this experience taught you about honesty?" Jennifer thought for a moment before answering. "I've learned that most people are starving for authentic communication. We're so used to polite lies and social performances that when someone offers complete honesty, even if it's sometimes uncomfortable, people respond with incredible relief. It's like they've been waiting their whole lives for someone to just tell them the truth." Ellen turned to address the camera directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer is showing us something profound about human communication. In a world where we're constantly managing the truth to protect feelings or avoid conflict, she's demonstrating the power of radical honesty." The audience applauded, recognizing that they had witnessed something genuinely unprecedented. Ellen looked back at Jennifer. "Do you ever wish you could get your ability to lie back?" Jennifer paused, clearly considering the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss being able to spare people's feelings with small kindnesses, but mostly no. This condition has forced me to live with complete integrity, and there's something surprisingly peaceful about that. I never have to remember what stories I've told or worry about getting caught in contradictions." Ellen pulled out a letter from her jacket. "Jennifer, I have something for you. The Crisis Counseling Center, where you volunteer, wants to expand their program, and this show is contributing $25,000 to help them hire more counselors who specialize in authentic communication techniques. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, the first time she had shown such emotion during the interview. This will help so many people who need to know that someone is willing to tell them the truth, even when it's difficult. Thank you. The episode aired exactly as it happened, becoming one of the most discussed segments in Ellen Show history. Within hours, pathological honesty was trending worldwide as viewers debated the value of complete honesty versus social diplomacy. But the real impact came from mental health professionals who were inspired by Jennifer's approach to crisis counseling. Several treatment centers began incorporating radical honesty techniques into their therapy programs, finding that clients responded powerfully to counselors who couldn't offer false reassurances but could provide genuine connection. 6 months later, Jennifer returned to Ellen's show with an update that demonstrated the continued evolution of her story. She had co-authored a book about living with pathological honesty and had become a sought-after speaker for organizations interested in authentic communication. "Any developments with your condition?" Ellen asked during the follow-up interview. "The neurological changes appear to be permanent," Jennifer said. "But I've stopped thinking of it as a disability. In a world full of fake news and social media personas, maybe someone who literally cannot lie has something valuable to offer. Because sometimes the most profound gifts come disguised as devastating losses, and sometimes the brain's attempt to heal itself creates something that the world didn't know it needed." Jennifer Walsh had lost her ability to lie and found her authentic voice, proving that truth, even when it's uncomfortable, can be the most powerful form of human connection. In a television studio that day, a woman who couldn't lie became a symbol of authentic communication, and audiences around the world were challenged to consider whether their own relationships might be strengthened by a little more honest truth and a little less diplomatic fiction.